Here we are.
I see you.
It's us, yay! Okay. So this is Murder and Mayhem in Minutes, and usually Goose is here with me, but today I have my bestie of 30 plus years, Lisa Parker.
Me.
That's Lily.
I'm here.
So when this started, when Murder and Mayhem came about, it was my idea because of my 40 plus
it's the
years
love
of fascination with true crime.
So many.
And I kind of dragged Goose on board, and I felt like our first couple of episodes, it was me talking to him, right? It legitimately was me talking to him, me telling him a story. I would always say, babe, you gotta know this story so we can have a conversation. I don't want it to be us reading to the audience. I want it to be a conversational type thing.
And he said,
right. And while everybody knows from the 10-7 show that I like to have my notes in front of me, I do. We are going to be telling you a story about true crime, about a serial killer that happened in the 80s in Philadelphia. So in this area, which is where we're from, we're all from Philadelphia area. But I wanted to be more conversational.
yes.
So I said to Lisa, the way you and I talk about these crimes, we know these people. We know the crimes that they've committed. Let's just you and I do this together. We'll see how far we get. If Goose needs to come back into the fold, we'll bring him back into the fold. If not, it'll be Lisa and I.
We're family. We're all family.
Murder and Mayhem in Minutes with Tara and Lisa. So
I'm so excited. Sorry.
Right. So we're back after a couple months hiatus. And so in talking, we were trying to figure out who can we touch on. And Lisa said to me, it was your idea, right?
Yeah.
Harrison Marty Graham.
That's what we're talking about.
So that's who we're covering this week. And Lisa said to me, how did it go? How did the conversation start?
So basically we were just talking about, let's do a local themed person.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I think we were just kind of just throwing ideas out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became what about Gary Heidnick? And I said,
yeah.
He's been done so many times.
He's been overdone.
Let's do somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just so happened I was Googling and this gentleman came up and I was like, oh,
right.
Well, wait a second now.
But also, and you said, Lisa, and this makes sense, that nobody really touched on Harrison Marty Graham that much. For whatever reason, people focus on Heidnick. But they were killing, not together, but they were both active serial killers at the same time. There were actually 3 active serial killers that same summer. Was it 87? I think it was. No, 87 was when he was caught.
He was caught. I think it was 86.
Right. So there were 3 active killers that.
That's my other mother.
That's what happens when you record from home. So there were 3 active serial killers that were going on at the same time. So there was Gary Heidnick, there was Harrison Marty Graham, and there was somebody else that we didn't even bother to research.
No, I'm sorry.
So maybe we'll do that for another episode.
Yes. So this particular situation was, and I brought this Harris attention was, I don't remember this at all. And I remember so many of the stories at the time being so focused on Heidnick and how this went under the radar, what kind of person he was. And I honestly think it was a racial undertone about the situation.
It could have been because Black people are never looked upon as serial killers. When you think of a serial killer, historically, they've been white men. But there are plenty of Black serial killers going back to the beginning of this country.
And it's a matter of just, that's just either their kind, their type, or we just don't really want to talk about it. Whatever the case may be, there was no real attraction that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But we definitely were like, let's look this up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Let's
be on about it. Yep. So here we go.
All right. So Harrison Marty Graham. You want to start, Ms. Parker?
So we are at the August of 1987. Mm-hmm. So that particular year, or I should say that summer, it was said to be extremely hot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what hot meant at that time because we're already in the 80s and 90s now. So I'm pretty sure it was about the same.
Right. Summers back then were different. It seemed hotter to me.
Well, we was little kids, so we had no clothes on. So,
when we didn't have air and everything.
That's true. And in 87, like I was telling Sarah earlier, we were 12, 13, actually. We just turned 13 years old. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to being in high school.
Right.
So our focus was probably not like, oh, who was on the news?
Mm-hmm.
Who was doing this?
We weren't watching.
We were just on the what high school you going to, and are we going to see each other because you're my best friend, and how are we going to hook up later on in summer? The situation was like that, at least for us at that point in time.
Yeah, we weren't thinking about it.
Exactly.
I kind of was though, because like I told you, I had heard of Harrison Marty Graham. Like you hadn't, but I had. I don't know, for whatever reason, like I remember seeing him on the news. I remember seeing when he was arrested.
Right.
And his name that the news gave him is the corpse collector. So that was the name that he went by.
So we're going to tell you about that. So basically, we're talking about the summer of Philly. We're down in North Philly. So we're about 19th and at the time, Cecil B. Moore, I know it and still call it Columbia Avenue because I'm from North.
That's what it was. Yeah.
So that being said, he was actually being evicted from his apartment.
And he had already been evicted.
So the situation was, when he was being evicted, the landlord was wanting to know why he kept coming back and forth to the apartment at all. So what they wanted to do, what the landlord chose to do, was ask his sons to go and see what actually he was coming back and forth with.
Right. What was he doing coming back to the apartment?
Right. So when he was collecting, well, I guess they wanted to know what it was. So he was the kids was bringing back to the dad what it was they were getting. That being said, like, any nosy grown up or kid is like, oh, well, let's look in the apartment.
Right. There was a room in the apartment that was locked. So they looked through the keyhole. And when they looked through the keyhole, what did they say?
Well, girl, they found a whole damn leg.
Yes.
So a whole leg that wasn't going nowhere.
Right. It appeared to be a dead body. So, of course, they immediately called the police. The first officer on the scene was named Pete Scalatino, I believe was his name. And what's interesting to me is the smell.
Listen,
how did neighbors not, like, okay, if a rat dies or a mouse dies, you know that scent. I've never actually smelled a dead body, but from what I hear, it's a dead body. Like, even if you don't have police training, when you smell a dead body, you're like, oh, that's a dead body. So I'm like, how is it that he was allowed to get away with, all right, well, let's just tell the story.
I'm bamboozled by the whole thing.
So Pete Scalatino, I'm going to read you some of my notes. He was the first officer on the scene. It says that he entered the apartment and went to the door to look through the keyhole. And what he saw was the naked legs of a woman lying still and lifeless. So it says that the crime scene was beyond unpleasant. Well, of course it was. Walking into the apartment, you could see trash was piled waist high. On the kitchen was a drawing of a naked woman, and it appeared like it was in dry blood. So that's sickening. What else? It says that scrawled next to it, and no, I said that it looked like it was dried blood. It says to the left of the dried blood was like two parallel lines that were drawn. I guess that might have been in blood as well. I don't know if that was some kind of a symbol. But police pried open the door that they were looking through the keyhole. They pried this door open. And once they did, they realized that there was a body that was on like two mattresses that were stacked high next to a television set. So this guy was in his apartment before he was evicted with a dead body, or several dead bodies.
Number one that they saw. So I guess as Sarah brought it to the attention of, we know what decaying animal stench is.
Right.
And to be, again, August of anyone's on the East Coast is going to be hot.
Any metropolitan city in August is hot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that being that's the situation, you not only find one, but we're going to go into the several that's been found.
So next to the mattress that the one body was on, they discover another female corpse. And she was wearing a denim miniskirt and a light colored shirt with the words "Poor Two" printed on it. I don't know if that has any significance. So still within the filth of trash, roaches, fleas, syringes, because they were users, sponges, old newspaper, magazines, just all kinds of crap piled up. Along with this mattress and smelly blankets, there are glass jars filled with yellow liquid.
So we talking hoarder situation. We're talking hoarding because we see that he can't flush or choose.
He might not have had working plumbing. It's quite possible. So yeah, jars filled with yellow liquid.
First of all, I
add that to the stench. Can you smell it?
Listen, and we talking not only bags of trash, waist high, but
dead
bodies,
and jars of yellow liquid.
And we talking hot.
August of 85. Okay. So
we're not trying to smell that, but the smell of vision coming through, I'm not trying to see.
So it says that it seems as though there had to be more of this overpowering stench than a dead body. Well, obviously. So upon further investigation, they found a third set of remains. Now, mind you, this is in a teeny tiny, like 2-bedroom, maybe like efficiency. It might have been 2-room, not even 2-bedroom. And that third set of remains was more skeletal, and it was under the second body. So the third body that was found had been there even longer.
So he's stacking.
He's stacking by. He's a corpse collector. That's his name. The corpse
collector. Stacking on trash.
Yes. Well, like, you got to remember, at the time, he was 28 years old. He was a drug abuser, and he was mentally retarded. Like, I know that's not PC to say today, but he had mental health issues. So
we all got mental health issues, but we ain't up there stacking bodies.
Some of us are. I'm not, but just okay. I'll move on. So less than 2 hours into this search, they find a fourth set of mummified remains. So how long was this man doing this? How long? They found skeletal remains, 2 bodies that were decomposing, and now a mummified body.
Now, mind you, we already talking about he's been evicted.
He's been evicted.
They were evicting him because of the smell coming from his apartment.
That's right.
Now, my question to you, and we were talking about this, like, where are the people? Where are the people that are like, hey,
so-and-so's missing.
Nancy Sue isn't here.
Right. So now you got to remember that we're talking about people who are probably sex workers, people who were addicted to drugs. And so when that happens, I mean, unfortunately, it's sad to say, but we see it all the time in cases like this. These are people who's like, their family knows that they're out there.
Yeah.
And they're, in the nefarious activities. So it's like, oh, if I don't see her for a couple weeks, a couple months, she's back on the shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's back on that stuff. She'll turn up when she turns up.
But still, the fact of it is that you're in a home watching people come in this house. There's a smell. Nobody puts 2 and 2 together in August.
Yeah.
Nobody puts hey, I saw Diane go in, but I ain't seen her come out. Yeah. And it's been already Thursday.
And then you got to remember, like, culturally,
that's true. That's true.
We mind our business. Like, I don't have a nickel in that dime. So,
I mean, some of my neighbors I don't know. Yeah. But again, we just coming out of pandemic. We still actually are in one.
We are.
But the fact is, when you see somebody go in, at some point you see them come out. And if it's a smell,
but you have to also remember, like I said, you have to remember the neighborhood that you're looking at. It was a very poor and disenfranchised neighborhood. Yes. He was in, like, where he was living, it was almost like an abandoned property almost, even though he was like, I guess, paying to live there. It's not like it was, the Ritz-Carlton. I mean,
I can see that being the situation, but I can't see it being the situation for months. Like, you have a mummified skeletal remains in your home.
Right.
And to have such a figure in a bunch of trash bags, waist high. If it was 2021, I don't care who you are. Somebody is going to investigate that because the stench is too alarming.
One would hope. Yes. I mean, because now people know. People know to look for certain things. In the 80s, it was like, it was the 80s. Kids were watching themselves. Like, when you think about the 80s, that decade, that was the most popular decade. And it's a shame to say it, but serial killers were running rampant. I mean, they still are now, but it's like you got away with so much stuff in the 80s. Like there was that satanic panic and cults and all kinds of stuff. So
I think too, you're also coming off of different decades dealing with different situations. Like we're talking
about the crack era,
right? We're talking about something that was allowed to be upon us because the government is like, well, that's in their culture,
that's their neighborhood,
that's their thing,
leave them alone. Yeah,
and there's that,
and there it is, and there you have it. And like I said, culturally, we tend to be like, that's none of my business. You know what I mean? So, all right, so let's move on.
I think
so. Like I said, yeah, the fourth mummified set of remains was uncovered from the piles of trash. Now, a fifth body was later found between two mattresses and clearly had been there so long that law enforcement was not even able to determine the sex of the body.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It is.
So now you got two mummified corpses in your home.
Yep.
In the midst of, first of all, I need to know, I know you don't know this, but was he sleeping on his mattress? Because that means
I don't know if he was sleeping on the mattress, but it said that he was into necrophilia, which means you have sex with a corpse. You like having sex with dead bodies. So
I'm gonna say no.
Who knows?
Ain't nothing right.
We can't say.
What's wrong?
In our research, we can't say. I know he was into necrophilia, so we're gonna let y'all use your imagination on that. All right. So victim number 6. Six was located crammed inside a tiny 6-inch deep closet, sitting up and wrapped in a sheet and tied with white electrical cord. So it was getting late in the evening, so detectives called off the search and resumed the next day. However, before they left for the day, they went up on the roof and discovered a moldering canvas bag under a dirty mattress that contained a leg and some foot bones. And they began looking in the backyard and in the lot across the street, which is where they found more remains. So,
see,
right.
And I know we're talking about the sign of the time. We're talking about the atmosphere. We're talking about the geographic expectations of the area. We're talking about heat. We're talking about all these demographic considerations. I'm just going back to the fact that I'm nosy.
I know. Me too. Same. In my
head, what are you doing over there?
In my head, I'm Nancy Drew.
This is all I'm saying.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
And number one, when you get mummified remains, they're not there for days.
No, we don't know how long he was killing. We have no idea how long he was killing. And like we said earlier, his arrest and his crimes were kind of overshadowed by Gary Heidnik, who was also an active serial killer in Philadelphia in the same neighborhood at the time. Gary Heidnik was a Caucasian gentleman, and then Harrison Marty Graham was a black fella. So, but still, Heidnik was killing black women who were drug addicts and sex workers. But
I honestly think if their survivors did not survive, we probably would not be talking about him today.
Right. Absolutely not. He probably would have got away with it. He definitely would have got away with it. You want to pick up and tell the people who Marty Graham was? Give a little background on Marty.
All right. So here we go with Marty. So he was born October 9th, 1958, eldest of 5 kids. By the age of 12, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and was in and out of foster care system.
So that makes me wonder what happened to his parents that he wound up in foster care. I couldn't find anything in my research.
So he grew up to be about 6 feet tall with a medium brown complexion, average build. He described to have brawny shoulders. What the hell is that? I don't know.
Why?
And large hands. Marty was a high school dropout who abused drugs. To the people in North Philadelphia neighborhood who didn't know him very well, he seemed to be nice, quiet, helpful handyman. Marty would go to the neighborhood basketball courts and play with the kids, and entertain them with his Cookie Monster routine that he had. So he was
it seemed like he was normal on the outside.
Nice dude. So
just don't go in his house because you're never gonna come back out.
Or be a female of a certain age and be like, "Hey, Marty, what's up, yo?" You may not come home. Just saying. So then, after interviewing neighbors who knew more about him, the police discovered that he had a composition book filled with drawings of naked women and dismembered body parts.
Mm-hmm.
It was soon to become known he faced charges due to these aggressions.
Yeah, so now I'm going to show you guys a picture of Marty. He wasn't ugly, but he does look a little scary.
I mean, he was 28, so he was probably looking.
I would love to show you a picture of Marty, but it's not coming up. All right. Let's see. Well, I thought I'd show you a picture of Marty. We'll post it onto the YouTube page.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to pick up here with the confession. Go ahead, Lily Parker.
All right, the confession. So for a week or so, Marty eluded the police until his mother persuaded him to turn himself in. Eventually, he did and confessed to all the crimes, saying he strangled the women under the influence of drugs. Then
How many times have we heard that? How many serial killers have said that?
I think legit all of them.
Yeah.
Like what kind of influence? What other influence would you?
I didn't mean to kill her. We were having sex and I just strangled her too hard.
Sorry. So then he offered to give the police names of the victims and was charged with 7 counts of murder and 7 counts of abuse of a corpse.
Because of the necrophilia.
Yeah,
gross.
Because he's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
So the victims, Cynthia Brooks, 28, Mary Jeters at 25, Barbara Mahoney, 22, Patricia Franklin, 24, Sandra Garvin at 33, and Valerie Jamison, 25, who wasn't identified till about 6 months later, January 26, 88.
So sad.
They all young, all had a lot of life to live, and unfortunately, this man, because he's
disgusting, and this mofo outlived them all.
34 years later, in 2021.
So these women who were in their 20s, 34 years later would have been in their 50s, and who knows? They could have gotten clean. They could have went on to be successful and had families. Thanks, Marty.
So many prospering things, but yet this gentleman here, is living his best life behind bars, getting 3 hots in a cot.
I would show you a picture, but I tried to do that the last time and it messed us up. But if you seriously, guys, Google Harrison Marty Graham and look at a picture of him in his younger years. He was not a bad looking dude. However, you can tell the lights are on, but nobody's home. And then now he's, chunky and, he's got the best medical care in the country, besides
he got fed well.
Senators and the president, you get good health care when you go to prison. Nice and chunky, 3 hots in a cot. Anywho, I digress.
I mean, all of this because why? Because you had listen. If you feel like you need to take somebody's life, take you home.
Start with you. Anyway,
these women did not deserve such a life.
And it's a shame because they were, considered nobodies because they were sex workers. They were drug addicts. It's a shame that that's how women and men, because men can be victims of
absolutely
serial. Oh,
absolutely.
God. Is that thunder?
That's thunder.
Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap up this show. The evidence. The bodies were carefully examined, but in order to identify them, the families had to supply dental records. All but one had dental records and were identified. So that's probably the last one who was identified in 1988. It might have been Valerie. Yeah. All right. So at trial, January 28th, the pre-trial hearing began, and Graham was ruled competent to stand trial, even though he was diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Good. Based on reports to 5 court-appointed experts, and in early February, there was a 2-hour hearing to determine which part of the prosecutor's evidence would be admitted. More than 100 gruesome photographs of the apartment were entered as exhibits. On March 8th, Graham waived his right to jury trial and chose to have a judge decide his case. He was convinced by his mother and his attorney that if the jury saw the gruesome evidence, his conviction would not be in his favor. He thought it might have possibly been in his favor. Either way,
we got parts. We got whole mummified corpse. We got bodies on bodies.
7 victims. You're like, oh, if they see the pictures, they're gonna fry me, as you should have been.
You literally are stacking bodies on bodies, and that enough should be like, I'm not living
to have you. Anyway, so the outcome. In May of 1988, Graham was sentenced to prison. He would serve 6 consecutive sentences of 7 to 14 years, 6 death sentences, and 1 life term. This brother is never coming home. Yet, in an unusual move, the judge added that Graham was not to be executed until he served the life sentence. So, when he dies,
yeah, exactly.
then he could be executed.
But you got 6 life terms. So you got to serve those 6 life terms before you can be executed.
Right. So which basically means he was given a life sentence without parole, as he should have been. Kudos to that judge. So, and that, my friends, is the story of Harrison Marty Graham.
Yeah, here we go.
That's it. So again, I'm Tara. I'm Lisa. And we hope you guys will join us.
Yes,
for another installment. I've only been trying to get this one to do a podcast with me for 2 years on true crime. It's all she and I ever talk about.
That's it.
True crimes. So here we are. Thanks, guys. We hope to see you the next time. Bye.